I believe it is reasonable to state that very little about the ocean is actually understood, and scientists and divers have not explored the entire underwater realm. Perhaps as a result, strange stories about the ocean persist despite lack of any solid evidence. For many years, sailors, divers, and other people have passed down tales of mystery, terror, and ghost. There are rumors that they are haunted by the ghosts of sunken ships that are said to have drifted away, some of which were led by enigmatic events. Some of these mysterious ships have been commemorated in well-known literary works. Even if some of these are urban legends and lack credibility, people continue to be intrigued and fearful by these haunted ships. Discover 10 of the most eerie shipwrecks ever found by diving into the ocean. But first, we have always been fascinated by the unexplained, the strange, and the downright weird. We love exploring unsolved mysteries, ancient civilizations, and conspiracy theories. There's something about these topics that just captures our imagination. We believe that history is full of secrets, and we're on a mission to uncover them. We want to share our findings with you, and we hope that you'll join us on this journey. If you're interested in learning more about these eerie shipwrecks, then be sure to subscribe and like this video, as your support helps us continue creating content that you enjoy. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below. Caleuche ranks 10th on our list. According to a tradition that is known as Caleuche mythology, the ship transforms into a creature every night close to the island of Caleuche. The locals here think that the boat is home to the ghost of those who perished in the sea. The Caleuche is said to be very loved and brilliant, with loud and abundant music and laughter, but the ship only stays for a short while before it abruptly vanishes once more into the uncharted oceans. It appears that the spirits only want to have fun, as the stories even claim that 3 water spirits known as Serena Chilota, the Pincoya, and the Pinkoi call the spirits out of the shadows. The Caleuche is undoubtedly the most humorous story on our list of haunting shipwrecks, in contrast to the other stories, as the discovery of following ghost ships will undoubtedly give you the chills. While the Caleuche has the potential of periodically reviving, it is not the only ship on our list to have suddenly sunk beneath icy, dark water. One of these vessels that capsized was the SS Valencia. Due to the circumstances surrounding its disappearance, the SS Valencia, which got into heavy weather near the Cape of Mendocino and drifted off the Earth's surface in January 1906 off the coast of Vancouver, British Columbia, has since been the subject of numerous terrifying ghost stories. Where did it disappear, you ask? That is where the issue is. No one knows. Before the sinking of the ship, they were only able to save 37 out of the 108 people that were aboard the ship using lifeboats. This is where it gets crazy, because the lifeboats disappeared with no trace. Some might say that this tragedy occurred because of the area in which the sinkage took place, the area which Valencia wreck is popularly known as the graveyard of the Pacific. The stories from the wreckage started when the crew of the ship, City of Topeka, reported an unexplained discovery. They allegedly saw skeletons on the Valencia ship headed toward the rocks, and the skeleton crew aboard the ship even signaled to the city of Topeka as if they had met. Local fishermen have also reported lifeboats with skeletons rowing in the area. That is one eerie ship. At number 8, we have the Flying Dutchman. This vessel has recorded some of the most popular paranormal stories associated with it, maybe even one of the most popular ones on this list. The Flying Dutchman has inspired some of the most iconic paintings and popular movies in Hollywood, some of which are our all-time favorites like Pirates of the Caribbean and The Dead Man's Chest. So far as haunted shipwrecks go, this is by far the most impactful in history. In case you were wondering how the Flying Dutchman became the Flying Dutchman, here is how. The captain of the infamous ship, Van der Decken, fought desperately to direct his vessel through the bad weather at the Cape of Good Hope when it was headed for the East Indies, but he failed horribly despite promising to drift until the end of the world. According to legend, they have since been cursed to spend all of their time at sea. Some fishermen have even reported seeing the ship. The Carroll A ranks 7th on our list of the spookiest ghost ships. Together with all its occupants, it vanished January 1921 off the coast of North Carolina. The ship was still in fair condition when it was discovered off Cape Hatteras on January 31, 1921, before it was reportedly destroyed on the Diamond Shoals. It was alleged that food that was ready for eating was left unattended when the Coast Guard boarded the ship. Everything seemed in order, but where the captain and his crew had wandered off seems to be the question here. They don't have many options on the sea, to be honest. Nobody is certain of what happened. Were they abducted by pirates or spies? Or was it the enigmatic Bermuda Triangle? Even more intriguing is the fact that no one has ever been able to explain what must have happened up to this point. However, some believe it may have been swept into the Bermuda Triangle. If true, this wouldn't be the first time this has occurred. Others, however, believe there must have been a mutiny because there was supposedly a battle among the crew members. However, wouldn't it indicate that the mutinous crew would have intended to take control of the ship? How come it was left to float then? At number 6 is Mary Celeste. Is it really a list of ghostly shipwrecks if Mary Celeste is left off? The ship was found on December 4th, 1872, adrift with its members, which consisted of the captain, Benjamin Spooner Briggs, his wife, Sarah, and Sophia, their 2-year-old daughter. There was also other crew members on board who at the time just wanted to get to Genoa, Italy, their destination, until tragedy hit them in the mid-Atlantic, where the crew of the Dei Gratia ship discovered the ship. But it's still unclear what exactly happened. The only certain thing is that the ship was discovered whole and completely equipped, but the captain, his family, and the crew were missing. And despite all efforts to investigate the case, no conclusion has been reached. Instead, only theories have been floated. Some assume that they may have been attacked by pirates, while others surmise that Dei Gratia's crew committed fraud. Number 5 is the Octavius, which was built in mid-18th century and was set to sail the high seas in 1781. While it did reach its destination year after it departed from England to journey to Asia, its return was not so lucky, as it was met with a rather chilling end. The captain of the ship allegedly wanted to be the first to journey through the unknown Northwest Passage, which connects the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean around northern Canada. Unfortunately, that would be how he and his crew members would meet their ultimate end. When the ship reached northern Alaska in 1762, it vanished and was not found again until 1775. The Herald, a whaling ship, found it in Greenland 13 years after she vanished, with all 28 crew members frozen below deck. The captain himself was found with a pen in hand as if writing a note. His wife and child were also sitting beside him, bundled in a blanket, as if they were just taking a nap, frozen in time. However, given how eerie the situation was, the boarding party fled the scene, and since then, the Octavius has not been sighted again. Fourth on the list is the MV Joyita, sometimes known as the Mary Celeste of the Pacific, because, like the Mary Celeste, it stayed adrift in the open sea as its crew and passengers inexplicably vanished into thin air. It was created with joy in mind, just like its name, Joyita, which is a translation of the Mexican word for little jewel. Roland West named it in honor of his wife, Jewel Carmen. Although it seemed like such a beautiful gesture, it had a really sad ending. The opulent yacht was initially sold to a private owner before eventually being purchased by the U.S. Navy during World War II, where it served as a patrol vessel off the coast of Hawaii until 1946. Before it vanished, the ship had a sizable and varied seagoing resume. Even though there was only one engine functioning at the time, the MV Joyita departed Apia, Samoa for the Takala Islands on October 3rd. The trip was supposed to be secure and endure 48 hours considering the proximity and the weather conditions. The ship carried 25 people, 16 of whom were crew and 9 were passengers. She also carried some medical supplies and wooden construction materials. Nearly 5 weeks later, the captain of Tuvalu, a merchant ship bound for Funafuti Atoll, decided to explore a curious ship he had spotted drifting in the seas. It turned out to be the MV Joyita, but this time it was lifeless. There was also reports of missing life rafts and weapons. But what grabs the public's attention is the discovery of bloodied bandages and doctor's bag of supplies, and a damaged radio tuned to the global distress signal on deck. Nobody has been able to explain what happened to the little jewel ship or the passenger she carried up until this point. If you thought the MV Joyita's fate was unworthy of its name, just wait until you hear about the lover's ship that was sunk in the 1700s. Another unfortunate ship was the Lady Lovibond, which sailed down the Thames to reach Oporto, Portugal on February 13, 1748. Simon Peel, the ship's captain, had recently wed and chose to bring his bride along to celebrate the happy event. Unbeknownst to the captain, Simon's companion was also in love with his bride and was overcome with jealousy. Furious, he drove the ship towards the Goodwin Sands, a region infamous for creating shipwrecks. Everyone on board was killed by this one action. Since then, Lady Lovibond has been spotted every 50 years around Kent. The legend started exactly 50 years ago when the captain of the Edenbridge reported hearing celebration sounds emanating from the wrecked ship, but there was no ship or people present when the rescue squad arrived. Other sightseeing includes 1848, 1898, and 1948, all of which occurred on February 13th. Nevertheless, exactly like the other occasions, when rescue crews were sent, they were unable to locate the ship. The SS Ourang Medan was found when 2 American ships sailing along the Strait of Malacca went to rescue her after receiving a distress call from the Ourang Medan. The caller claimed to be a crew member and reported that everybody on the ship had died. His last words, according to the rescuers, were, "I die." However, when the rescuers arrived at the ship, it was unharmed, but the entire crew, including their dog, were found dead with terrified faces. Strangely, before further investigations could be carried out, the ship caught fire. People naturally turned to the only alternative theory they could come up with, which was that it must have been caused by paranormal events or possibly an alien invasion, since there was no convincing evidence of what had occurred. Innumerable works of literature, movies, and even articles have all mentioned the sumptuous Titanic, making it one of history's most famous phantom ships. In the early hours of April 15, 1912, the unsurvivable RMS sank. Over 1,500 people lost their lives in this tragedy, which occurred in the opulent maiden voyage, which carried about 2,240 passengers and personnel. However, it is believed that because of its state-of-the-art, the ship was doomed from the start. Off the coast of Newfoundland, the Titanic struck an iceberg, which ultimately led to its demise. It is hardly surprising that conspiracy theories have been raised as a result of the extensive media coverage that they received, which attracted people's curiosity and scrutiny. According to some myths, the ship was cursed by a mummified princess. The most popular theory, however, is based on the owner's claim that God cannot sink the ship. Therefore, they concluded that the owner must have displeased God. Which of the eerily abandoned ships gave you the chills? Do you believe that these ships are haunted even today? Does Lady Lovibond have an even remote chance of making an appearance soon? How did the MV Joyita's passengers go missing, and why? Which of these puzzles are you most eager to learn the solution to? Please share your opinions in the comment space below.